What's up, everybody? I'm back again with another episode of Ask Chad Grassy Logic. This is actually the last episode of season 1 before we head into season 2, take a little break for the holidays. And I have a special episode and a bunch of special guests with me today. And I won't take up the room. I'll let them all introduce themselves. We got the gents from High Times and Fusion over here. So, guys, please, thank you for joining me and go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Yeah, I'm Joey. Work on the Cannabis Cup team for the last 5-6 years, doing everything from side ops to VIP land, and now we're back in New Mexico coming up this weekend. Super excited. Doing the first in-person event since COVID. So, yeah, excited to be back. That's me.
First event, bringing it to New Mexico only. You guys are very special. We'll talk about that in a bit. But, Mark Kaz or Kaz. You guys call me whatever is more memorable. And Joey and I run all the High Times Cannabis Cup competitions. So just going state to state, identifying and awarding all the best brands and products, because Lord knows that people are busting their ass to make great product, and we want to really figure out who has the best and let the world know about that.
Oh, definitely. And it comes with the bragging rights, right?
Oh, yeah. My name is Julio. I'm with Fusion Promotions, Vice President of Fusion Promotions here in New Mexico. And we're the team that's been working with Kaz and High Times for the better part of 5 years or so to make this thing happen. And so super excited to be the first live show back in the States, and looking to show New Mexico a good time December 9th.
Awesome. Yeah, me too. I'm looking forward to being there myself. I've always wanted to attend a High Times Cannabis Cup, and now is the opportunity. So I appreciate you guys bringing it down here to New Mexico, the first one in person since, pretty much COVID happened. And we do feel special and fuzzy inside. So don't worry, Kaz. We can talk more about that here in a little bit. So thank you all again for joining me. And thank you all for watching this first season. It's been great. We're episode 42. And then we'll be back in January. We'll kick off season 2. Real quick, I want to thank Adams Radio Group for just allowing me to be on this podcast and producing it for me. I want to thank all the salespeople that have been working hard trying to get dispensaries in so we can get some advertising going for them. And I want to thank Lindsay, the GM of the studio. She's great. She's been helping me, and of course Gino, my producer, doing the work every week. Grinding. He's here with me in the trenches. So I thank you so much. And thanks for this great first season, man. We've learned a lot. So, and thank you guys for being here for this, this special, episode. So we're going to jump right into it. And we're actually going to talk about High Times. And you guys actually do a lot in the cannabis scene, and not just in the cannabis scene. I'll ask that more later, but you guys do a lot. And for those of my listeners who don't know, because some of you are new, too young, etc., High Times has been around since the early to mid 70s. It really has been one of those sources of information that all cannabis users have really jumped to through the years. And, you guys are still here to today. So what are some things you can tell me about, High Times, maybe some historical stuff that you know?
Yeah, I can take this one. High Times was started in the underground basement of Tom Forsad in New York City as a newspaper kind of syndicate, all about counterculture. Fuck the man, all these rules, the war against drugs, and even the first cover. Actually, before I even get that, it was essentially just a newspaper, being passed around amongst the people of the underground culture there, and it was literally just education and politics and science about what cannabis is, but also more things, psychedelics, psilocybin, LSD, quaaludes, everything under the sun. High Times was counterculture and promoting that to the world, and it caught on. People loved it. It started to get more issues printed, more circulation, so just more people wanting this. So they created High Times Magazine as a real magazine. First cover, 1974, with a girl holding a mushroom about to eat it. So certainly focusing on more than just cannabis.
Yes.
And it just exploded. So all things, how to grow weed in your basement, how to find the best seeds or buds on the market. They had, stock tickers essentially showcasing what the value or prices were of cannabis in different areas of the world. And all things, that any cannabis consumer would want to read. That was the demographic. That was the quality content that High Times has been putting out since 1974. And then moving along into the 80s, they started the Cannabis Cup competition. So Battle of the Buds in Amsterdam, who's got the best weed? People from all over the world would come with their seeds or their fresh flower. And it was, no brands, no labels, no nothing. just straight weed in a bag. Who's got the best stuff? Let's all huddle up in a house in Amsterdam, smoke out for a week, testing each one and determining who the winner is. And that really took hold on a lot of different, industry heads. More people wanted that. So in the 2000s, they brought the Cannabis Cup, international. So bringing it all across the United States, bringing it into Jamaica, more territories where, people were growing cannabis, whatever market you want to call it under.
Yeah.
Were operating, they were doing their thing and kind of doing it in the shadows. So the Cannabis Cup was one of the only ways to put a little bit of a spotlight, not too much of a spotlight, but a little bit of a spotlight on these people who are, in the shadows, busting their ass to create some of the best products, whether it's for, medical patients or just adult users. Not that there was even any classifications of that, of any kind during that time, but yeah, bringing this to the world and showcasing who's got the best products across the country. So yeah, been around for coming up on 50 years now. It'll be our 50-year anniversary next year. So a lot going on, a lot of history, and hopefully a lot more future times to come.
Yeah, definitely. Future high times.
Exactly.
That's great. And this next question is really for Kaz and Joey. How long have you both been in the cannabis industry?
Joey, take it away. You're on mute.
You're on mute, Joe.
Oh, take it off mute. There we go. Now we can hear you.
Been in there about 12 years now. 7 on the legal side, the rest on the legacy side through high school and having fun,
Right. Yeah. Nice, man. So you've been around for a hot minute.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah. And I piggyback off of his immense experience and weed nerd knowledge. But I've only been in the cannabis industry for 6 years now. So all with High Times, came from the talent agency world where we were booking musicians and comedians on tour, and we sold a lot of talent to High Times for the festivals. Mm-hmm. So I got close with that team and they brought me over, and coming up on 6 years now.
Nice. And Damien, how long have you been, doing the promotional stuff?
Well, Julio, actually.
Julio, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Promotion wise, me and Damien have been doing promotions for going on 20 years now. Background is radio. I've been on the radio here in New Mexico, Florida, Texas, all over the country. And me and Damien have really taken that experience and used it to our advantage and started putting on live shows and done a lot of live shows here throughout New Mexico, from hip hop radio shows to club shows to large, EDM, electronic techno dance party shows. So had the full kind of gamut of what we do. But had my eye on Cannabis Cup since I went to the Denver show in 2016 and came back and was like, yeah, we need this in New Mexico. And so since around 2018, Damien and I have been just kind of, in conversation with High Times of how we could make this happen and what made sense for the market. And then, People's Choice came around. And so we decided to make that, the first shot at New Mexico and High Times doing something together.
Nice, man. I'm glad you guys were able to make this happen. Some great things take a long time to happen. So,
yes, absolutely.
I'm glad it finally did. So maybe we can make these happen more. And, I've been trying to push the state to really change the law so we can have more open consumption, public consumption kind of stuff, make it easier for these events to kind of occur. So that's something in the works. But it might take a couple of years because this next coming legislative session is only 30 days. New Mexico's kind of weird in that sense. So,
yeah.
But yeah, maybe we will one day. We can just, I don't know, have a whole huge park and just, have a big old event.
Soon enough.
That'd be great.
Just with concerts and drinking alcohol, we would love the same opportunity for cannabis.
Right. Exactly. And that's the same thing I try to tell people all the time. Don't put us back in the basements,
Yeah.
We just got out. Don't put us back in. But yeah, thank you guys for sharing that. I was just curious, because all of you bring, your own talents, your own backgrounds, and your own experiences. And so that, kind of leads up to this, and that's great. So how has the ever changing cannabis industry really molded High Times to the company that it is today?
That is an interesting question. A lot of different answers or comments, but yeah, I think as the industry changes, there's less people looking for certain advice on home grow, because a lot of people are being, licensed in commercial grow spaces. So they're seeking it not just from High Times, but more commercially ran growers. For example, Joey has a ton of experience in running some commercial grows. So people on his level, they're not necessarily going to High Times, for some home grow guidance, but looking at some more larger scale cannabis cultivation operations. And yeah, I think it's just as the industry changes, we're always watching it and we're covering what's happening. So, all right, more MSOs coming into the marketplace. What does that mean? How does that affect the home growers? How does that affect caregivers? Laws are passed, new states come online. Every change that happens within the industry, High Times is there to cover it. We have an amazing team of editorial staff that is keeping their finger on the pulse of everything that's happening. And then, for the Cannabis Cup events and competitions, it's become a lot more challenging to run these events. There's a lot of loopholes you have to jump through. There's a lot of compliance, approvals that we need to get. And you can't always just throw an event and say, yeah, cool, we're having a bunch of cannabis brands. Those brands have to be properly licensed. They have to get approval from the state to be, out of their main facilities and have cannabis on site or consumption on site, which is a full, process that not a lot of states even approve. New Mexico doesn't approve cannabis consumption events or sales events. So this event, although a High Times event, it's not a consumption event. It's not a sales event. We have security that will help enforce, non-smoking, but obviously there's thousands of people there, and we can only do our best to limit that. So you'll probably see a little bit of smoke, but we are not advertising as an event or encouraging it. And you might be asked to put your joints out. So a lot of things related to, just the coverage of the industry itself and the changing times. And then also, as we put on events and competitions, molding our processes and logistics to match regulations, because we're not going to risk our name. We don't want to risk, anybody else of our partners' names or licenses, because they've worked very hard to get that and jump through hoops. So we want to make sure that we're following the letter of the law, even though that does restrict us, even though that does minimize the amount of people that we can work with. Because, by all means, do we want to work with the home growers? Because sometimes they're making some of the best craft cannabis. Yes. But are they licensed to participate in a Cannabis Cup? Unfortunately not. And we can't properly give that to a dispensary that then gives that to one of our Cannabis Cup judges in a legal or compliant or healthy or safe manner. So as the industry changes, we have to watch it. We keep a pulse on it. Luckily, we have great partners like Fusion, who has great, connections to the, local governing body and the lawyers that deal with the local governing body to help us get some of these things approved so that we can continue to operate.
So, the more cannabis becomes legal, the more you guys have to stay within those legal laws too, because it's like, all right, now they're legal. That means we do too. So yeah, that's kind of interesting how, it's almost like a double-edged sword. It's great, but it's also like, oh, it's a pain in the ass now, so
Yeah.
that's really interesting to hear. I never really thought about that perspective. So thank you for sharing that to me, because, you don't always think about the perspective of that side. You're just like, oh yeah, it's High Times. They're down with whatever. But you guys have laws and stuff that you have to follow too. No one wants to get sued and lose millions of dollars. So that's understandable at the end of the day. And that's one thing that I try to remind people. I'm like, guys, we're past it's stoner time. We have to show people that this is a legit business. We're here for serious business, and this is a legitimate industry. So that's one thing that I really try to push people, and especially on this show. I try to show people, hey, this is the right way. Because even the CCD here in New Mexico, they actually reached out, because we've been having a lot of events, and there's a lot of dumb stuff that was going on during them. And I myself saw it, and I was like, hey guys, you should probably chill out on that. Well, they put out a letter saying, hey, we know the consumption's going on. It's mostly illegal, but this is the legal way you do it. And so they actually told us how to legally consume cannabis, either publicly or within a building. And they told us it either has to be a designated smoking area. That's what the law allows, which it does. So as long as it's a designated smoking area, you can have cannabis or tobacco there. Or if it's a standalone building that isn't going to infiltrate the other buildings, windows, front door, or their ventilation systems. And so that's the other caveat. And then they want it to be a reasonable distance from the building. I looked that up, and it just doesn't give you a footage. There could be city ordinances on that, but I'm not too sure. But they at least gave us a route where we can actually do this legally, have these events. But there's a little gray areas that we have to kind of clean up to make sure we do right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yes.
100%.
100%. So you guys understand. I mean, I'm preaching to the choir on that one. It was great to see that, the regulatory entity is actually reaching out and being supportive in that sense. Like, hey, y'all are fucking up, but this is the legal way to do it. Here's the right answer.
We truly need, though, is we need our regulators to work with us
Yes.
to kind of progress everything. Like, we're not all criminals anymore. Like, yeah, we've done criminal shit to get by because we were trying to do meds that they made illegal. At the end of the day, we still want to work with them so we can progress everything. If they want to have a great tax industry and taxing on all our products, let us host these events so they can get more tax money. Like, it's a benefit to everyone. You see that there's less crashes, less fights, less criminal activity happening at a cannabis sanctioned event than there are at concerts and alcohol driven kind of fueled stuff. So like, I think regulators need to start working with us more because it's safer for public. And it's been proven time and time again.
Yes. Another reason, that we want to do this, as Fusion, with a reputable name like High Times, there's a lot of competition and cups and, whatever kind of hash parties around the state, but none of those are really regulated. None of those are really legal, if we're being honest. And at the same time, I don't want to see the industry take a hit because we're doing these backyard events and then it stops us from able to do events like this with High Times. So it was a big, important part of why me and Damien brought this, on a national, international level with some reputable people, as in High Times, to add some validity to the market and say, look, we're doing this. We want to validate those that are doing it correctly and encourage that kind of behavior in the industry so that this industry could continue to thrive and grow. And then we can have those consumption events and do the things like we've talked about. But for us, there had to be a starting point, and we're excited that this happened to be the jump off point for us.
100%. And we'll get there, and I looked up in the state how hard it is for like the wine festivals to get, those producers, and all they do is verify they have a license, and that's about it. So, if we could do something similar for cannabis, I think that would help us out, because I looked at that process and I was like, that's ridiculous. And like, they're pouring wine like fountains over there.
Exactly.
So, it's not like it's, responsible consuming by any means.
Right.
So yeah, I agree. And it's going to take time. And this is a start, like we said. And those underground ones, I see a lot of the people who run them, and I talk to them and know them. And, a lot of them are kind of like, this might be the last one we're doing. Cause the state actually knows about the sales and everything that goes on at the illegal events. They actually know about it. And I found out through a source. And so I had to let them know, guys, they know you're going to have to stop.
Regulators, please give us a way to maintain this point of sale system, and we should abide by it. If they give us that opportunity we'll take that opportunity to make it happen.
100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's what I keep telling them too. And like I said, the legislative session's coming up, and our legislators here actually understand that and want to give us a route. It's really hard when it comes to the legislature. Not everybody is always on board. So I think that's one of the issues here. I think next year will be our better bet, because we'll have a 60-day session. At odd years in New Mexico are 60-day sessions. And that's usually when we can get stuff passed. This year, we'll probably be able to maybe change the taxes on the cannabis, but it's a starting point to get the conversation going, through the whole year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Heck yeah. Well, let's continue the conversation. I mean, these are great points that you guys bring up too. But what's one thing that you guys haven't seen changed in the cannabis landscape with the change of technology and just, through time, and even, with legalization kicking on around the nation?
I think like banking and ad space is a huge aspect that the cannabis industry needs. And that's even through social platforms, allowing it to be on their platforms. I think with the technology space, we need to be embracing it more. They embrace alcohol. You'll see in Super Bowl in 2 months, they'll be advertising all these alcohol brands. Alcohol kills 140,000 people a year globally. And compared to cannabis, there's very little deaths attributed to it. We are starting to see more deaths attributed to cannabis within allergies and asthma attacks. Like, there's a real danger to it. It is a plant. It is a thing that people can be allergic to. So it just needs to be known that way. It's not just no deaths are occurred to cannabis now at this point. And I think just the ad space and like internet technology needs to allow us to operate like a normal business that they allow for anything else. I think that's where the biggest problem is we are still so segregated and treated as criminals, treated as this such a bad thing, that we need to actually become a legalized product. Remember, nowhere in the United States is this legal. We are only just taxed and regulated.
Yes.
We are not legal by any means. It's still federally illegal. So you still have a bunch of police officers or people in the federal workspace that are not allowed to consume cannabis, but they're still allowed to consume opiates and fentanyl and everything because that's fine to the federal government. But I think we need to be allowed to just process as a normal company.
Yeah,
100%.
the over governing on state level is, you know, tremendous, and on a federal level it's ridiculous. To Joey's point, you know, there's hundreds of thousands of accidents alone a year, every month, probably in the country due to alcohol, and the same can't be said about cannabis. But yet we can't get a legal bank account. You know, we have to jump through all these loopholes, like he's talking about, for internet and social and stuff, where it's not that we're illegal, but because the federal law hasn't changed and we're still looked at as a Schedule I narcotic, a lot of banking industries or anything that's backed by the federal government, they're very gun shy about even speaking towards cannabis because they don't want to be made an example of. And really, that old reefer madness stigma needs to go away. I mean, this isn't 1950 anymore. There's plenty of people out there that are doing great business with cannabis, well on cannabis, so on and so forth. And I think slowly but surely, as states turn online, it's forcing the federal government to change their position on cannabis. And that's why you see a lot of talk about rescheduling the narcotic from a 1 to a Schedule 3. You also see a lot about the Federal Banking Act in play. So it's not to say that these people in the federal government don't see it either and don't want the same thing. It's more about turning each state, I think, individually, that really is going to force the country to make a decision. So I feel strongly that one of these next presidential candidates is going to have to make a choice on which way this country is going to go when it comes to cannabis.
I agree, because we have it's pretty much on the DEA's hands right now on where it's going to go. And once we get that ruling, which I've told people this, it's very rare that one government entity goes against another government entity's recommendations. And
Right.
so I keep telling people I don't want it, but we're probably going to be stuck with Schedule 3. And
it's probably going to
be ready for that.
I agree, but it'll help. It's a big step forward in this whole war on drugs, which we all know is a bunch of BS. That it's just and even more so when it comes to do with cannabis, right?
Yes.
There is a real drug problem. There's a real narcotic problem in the country, but cannabis isn't a part of that.
No, and
And this
never
whole
been a part of that equation.
Yeah, this whole gateway drug scenario that they've been selling for the last 30 or 40 years is slowly starting to diminish, I feel, with states turning on, and you have more professional adults in a professional setting interacting with cannabis and still being able to function and do their job, live their lives, so on and so forth. So I think it's a lot of show and prove, but we still got a big road ahead of us, I believe.
Right. I don't know about you guys, but do you think about all the dare bullshit that they taught us back in the day and you laugh at it now? I like
still got my
hilarious
dare.
to laugh at
Who's
it.
giving out these free drugs around Halloween? 'Cause I'm trying to go to their house. Like,
Where
let me
these
go
kids-
trick-or-treating again.
Right?
Right? What house is giving out drugs on Halloween? I mean, for a message
Yeah.
for a friend.
Put them on
Anytime
my
it's free
list.
drugs, accept them. They're expensive nowadays,
Right?
Right. People just don't give them away for free, man. If you get that lucky, take it.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah. Well, speaking about technology, how has like High Times and you guys yourselves, really kept up with it? Because I've noticed that you guys have changed, but what are some other ways that you've implemented?
Guess?
Yeah, I think, first and foremost, speaking with the cannabis competitions, there has been, before the cannabis competitions were very analog and very small in terms of the actual competition portion of it. The festivals were always huge, no doubt, but the actual competition was about 200 judges within one entire state.
Wow.
And those were all like friends of friends, and there wasn't a lot of distribution for these judge kits across the entire state. You know, we're here. If we did it in LA, you got to be LA local and you got to come pick this up yourself. And that's that. And then the award show was announced at a physical event where you had to be at that event. There's really no other way that you could watch the award show.
Yeah.
After the pandemic hit and, you know, technology took even more hold, you know, people were doing Zoom calls, people were watching content online, people were doing concerts from their office. We took that same stride, and we actually got a ton of feedback from people who were saying, like, I want to be a judge. No, I'm not in Los Angeles. No, I'm not in, you know, Denver, Colorado, but I'm on the outskirts. I'm over here, and my palate matters. My opinion matters. How do I be a judge? Like, I will pay to be a judge. So pandemic hit. We got all this feedback literally at the same time. It was the perfect kind of brewing of this new idea called the Cannabis Cup People's Choice. Mm-hmm. And we started that new model once the pandemic hit. So it democratized the judging platform. It democratized the judging population. Instead of 200 judges, we now do 2,000 judges per state. And we're actively distributing those kits all across the entire state. So when we did New Mexico, we have it from Las Cruces, you know, from down south to top north to east to west. Yeah. If you want to get a judge kit, you will have less than an hour drive to be able to get one of these judge kits, most likely. Mm-hmm. We even had some in Roswell, which is where we worked for 2 weeks straight on these kits. So much bigger. We are including more people. It's no longer like a paper, judging forum. We do it online on a High Times judging portal. So just bring a little bit of tech there, which I think there's a lot more room for improvement on that as well, which we're going to be working on. And then the award show has been announced, since there's been no events, digitally online over the internet, where anybody across the entire world can watch it for free. So that just opened up the demographic or the population of people who can watch the award show, which has been really great for all of our partners involved, because nowadays there's a lot of companies that are not just in one state. They want their brand to be seen by audiences in other states, and then want to get feedback from those people so that they can enter into new states or evaluate, you know, what they want to do as they expand their business. So that's a little bit on that part. And then, I think, you know, we've expanded the magazine into a digital magazine as well. So a lot of more people don't have to go and, you know, pick it up at Barnes and Noble or wherever else. They can get a subscription online and be able to see the beautiful editorial, that we put out there. So that's been good. And a lot more that I probably don't have at the top of my head, that it might not be in my own department, that we've, certainly activated, in terms of dispenser, as we have dispensaries in California, new ways for people to engage with our dispensary and find our menus. Online ordering has come into place over the past, 5 so years for us. And I think that's all I got for that.
That was a lot. No, you guys have adapted very well, and you've listened to, your customer base essentially. And, you've really gone in the direction that they wanted to. And, a lot of companies don't do that. And so that's kind of relieving to hear, someone actually does listen to what people say, regardless of what other people may say that, which could be the minority that don't like it. Because a lot of the times that's what I see. The loud ones are sometimes the minority, just because they dislike it so much. But, the majority, if you talk to most people, like, oh, no, I like it because of this and this, or because of the ease of this. Like, I like really watching your guys' Instagram because I get a lot of information from it. It's informal.
Yeah. And to your point, look, we're going to have a lot of naysayers and a lot of haters. When I joined High Times 6 years ago, my first week, I had people, claiming this, that, or the other, or hating on, what I'm doing or what my company's doing or whatever else. And I think, as I talk to a lot of other people at other companies, you don't really see, you don't hear the hatred or whatever, or the naysayers until you're working for that company. So we experienced it, firsthand as soon as I joined. And yes, a lot of the people who are naysayers or haters, they don't have the full picture. They're not they haven't spoken to me or to Joey or to Julio or to Damien or anybody else who's involved with this event or other projects. And it's a lot of, for the competition specifically, it's a lot of sore losers who, claim that something is rigged or a sponsor won because they're a sponsor, when it has nothing to do with that. It is literally, this sponsor is a sponsor because they have a good business. They make great cannabis products and therefore are making good money off of that cannabis products and continuing to do business. So they have the funds and the resources and the staff to be able to be a sponsor, but it has not and will not ever be, at least under our watch, anything that would affect any scores of Cannabis Cup winners. We take full pride and integrity in that. I've even had some people try to bribed me with a lot of money in cash behind a dispensary in a duffel bag to take home a trophy. And I was like, nah, I don't know what you think or what you've heard, but this will never happen. Keep your money, put your best product in, and we'll see if you get a trophy.
Yeah, there you go.
And I think that went a long way for that group who has now continually worked with us for years and years, because I think they respected that answer. And I want everybody else out there to hear that, because there's a lot of rumors out there and a lot of naysayers. And look, we just want to run a good competition. We want to run it with integrity and transparency. And when we do these events, yes, we have a lot of hurdles to jump through, but we jump through those hurdles, and we have a lot of planning to do, and we do that planning. And we want to put together the best people of the community who want to come together and celebrate what everybody's done in the industry, and not only celebrate what they've done in the industry for their own people, and let everybody come in and see what this industry is doing, especially in New Mexico for this event.
Yeah. And to that point, Damien and I, like I said, I followed Cannabis Cup. I was a magazine subscriber years ago. So it's, I've been, a part of it since way back, and to be able to see it come to America, do what they did in Denver and these different competitions. I remember how hard it was to be a judge. I tried, and I actually knew some people, and it was hard as hell to get even any kind of affiliation with it. So when the cup changed and we went to this People's Choice model, I along with Damien, and Fusion, we thought it would be the perfect model to bring to the state, because we definitely know how challenging New Mexico can be. We definitely know how everybody out here has got a very strong opinion of their position in the cannabis world, as we say it. And we wanted to give them a chance to shine and do it properly. And even in doing that, you still find a lot of pushback, right? You still find a lot of people who don't understand why we're doing it this way, or to Mark's point, I could just pay for a cup and I'll get in, this, that, or the other. This competition goes a long way in trying to air out some of those assumptions and let people understand that, no, this is legitimate. This is done correctly. This is judged by the people. And I think, who knows, come December 9th, I think everybody's going to be surprised, including myself. You're like, who's going to win? Nobody knows.
True.
We have no idea, and it's all up to the individual customers who went out and took time out of their lives to go buy a bag, stand in line, be a part of our community with High Times, and take part in this venture with us. So, we definitely like to thank all of the people out there who stood in line, got a judge kit, went through all the BS and Q&A from friends and family, and God knows who else, about why you're doing this, to be a part of something unique and hopefully be a part of change. Fusion, this is the first of many shows that we do, hopefully, and working with High Times. And I just anticipate year by year this getting better and better as some of these, assumptions of what this is or what it could be or what they think it is kind of get put to bed, and the community comes together to really join in and be a part of these things.
Definitely. And,
so it's a big part of education that we're delivering out December 9th too, right? It's a big show and prove that this can be done on a major scale in a major arena and done correctly, and make everybody feel good about it. So there's a lot riding on it, and it's been a big ask of everybody in New Mexico, but I'm excited for those that have decided to partake and steadfast with us to see this through. So it's gonna be a good time.
It's going to be great. We hope everybody who's listening shows up to this beautiful event.
Yes.
Yeah, I do too. I'm going myself. I've always wanted to go to a High Times Cup, Cannabis Cup. It's been like a dream, like I was a teenager, back in the days, like, oh, that looks cool as shit. So it's great to see that, we're having it now here in New Mexico. We were the first medical cannabis state back in the 70s. So it's great that you guys are starting the first in-person one again here in the state that actually started the medical cannabis movement. It's just, California did it better years later. So yeah, thank you for all those points, guys. I mean, I really appreciate it, and the explanations and everything. I'm sure some people have their assumptions about, how this started, the reason why it went that route. But I really appreciate you guys giving me that insight. One thing I did notice is that we're the only in-person event right now. Can you, elaborate on that a little bit more? Don't get me wrong, we feel special.
Yeah, you can thank Julio and Damien. Julio,
again, big fan, been a fan forever, and had been to all these events, and got to partake in the small piece of the judging stuff in 2016, and saw how cool that was, and just saw to me, how it kind of High Times coming to the market on an international and national platform brings a lot of, I say, legitimacy to the market. And I think, because prior to that, everybody was so standoffish with cannabis, right?
Yeah.
So being able to do these type of events and do them on a big grandiose level is really exposing the cannabis industry, I feel like, to a broader audience in whichever city it might be in, and giving yet another way to maybe bring some people into this new community and make them feel good about it, not feel kind of under the gun for being a part of something that's been so highly illegal for so long. And again, in regards to local competitions and stuff that were going on in the state, I've known about them, I've been to them, and those are all great, no disrespect to any of those. We just wanted to kind of do it on a bigger level. Yeah. And so we reached out to High Times, and we had something kind of going in, late 2018, and then everything kind of changed, within High Times themselves and the pandemic. And so we just stayed patient. And then, as things started to unroll after pandemic, we got in touch with Kaz, and he was happy to kind of see it through and get back to where we were and finally, make this thing happen. Yeah. So it's really just been a lot of phone calls, emails, and just staying on top of it, man, to make it happen. Thanks, to Kaz and Joey for being patient with Damien and I for blowing up phones for months, and, we'd go and let a little bit of time go by and then get right back on it, and say, hey, this is what we think, we should do. And Mark started the People's Choice Awards, and it just was a perfect fit. So, it's great to finally see the dream and the idea finally come to fruition.
No, 100%, dude. And I can tell it's a lot of work, and it's like your baby, which, I mean, I don't blame you at all. It's something this big, is something to be proud of. So, yeah, I mean, I'm glad you guys stuck with it, stayed patient. Again, you guys, Kaz and Joey, you guys were patient. Thank you for that, because you brought us a live event here to New Mexico now. And I think we appreciate that too here in New Mexico, because we are standoffish when it comes to outsiders. And that's just the way our state has been. I'm born and raised here, and I've seen it my whole life. And, we're standoffish, and, we just have to be proven differently. And then, our opinions change. So I'm looking forward to the event myself. And before we move on and everything, where can people find the information on the event, how to get tickets, the whole 9 yards on it right now?
So everything can be found at cannabiscup.com. Okay. There's links there to all the tickets, Ticketmaster.com. You can go to Ticketmaster.com and just search Cannabis Cup New Mexico, and it'll come up, Cannabis Cup Award Show, and you'll find it. You can search under any of the major artists like Red and Meth or Paul Wall, any of the artist names, and it'll come up again. But all tickets are on Ticketmaster, and there's a lot of great sales out there. So if you follow High Times social media, follow Future Promotion social media, the Hustle 1013 social media, or any of one of our supporting partners, you're going to see a lot of different ways to win tickets, everything from tickets to meet and greet passes to meet the artists. And trying to make sure that we give everybody a chance to be there. So, there's definitely plenty of ways to get tickets and still be a part of the show.
Awesome. Yeah. And I'm thank you for that information, because that was one thing I wanted to make sure I asked. So I don't get that question because I don't know.
Yeah. One thing I do want to clarify, if we can real quick, is the fact that this is, in fact, a concert award show. I've had a couple of calls of people thinking that we were doing more of an expo style thing where we're giving out the awards and people are signing autographs, and quite to the contrary. This is a full-fledged concert event with the award show happening about 90 minutes prior to the show. So all the awards will be given out for the top 11 categories in New Mexico for each one of the respective winners. They'll come up, get their prestigious Cannabis Cup, and be on their way to partying. And then we'll move forward right into a full-fledged concert event. So I definitely wanted to make sure that was clear for the people out there who thought, oh, well, this just sounds like a big smoking party, or, they're just going to give awards away. What is this? And it is an actual concert event, so come out and enjoy. There'll be a lot of vendors out there. There'll be tons of people from New Mexico for you to interact with and check out their products and learn about their companies. And then again, we'll give out the awards, the 11 awards, and we'll make quick time of that, and then right into a full-fledged show for the rest of the night. So definitely want to make sure that people understand this is a full-fledged concert event. Come out and party with us, and have some fun and be able to be there live in the building to congratulate the first place winners of the Cannabis Cup.
Yeah.
Red
You'll
and Meth
see
are one
me
of my
and
favorite
Joey.
rappers.
You'll see Joey and I on stage hosting the award show, giving all the accolades out. We're going to bring some people on stage so they can cry in our arms as we hand over these beautiful Cannabis Cup trophies.
Yeah, show it off there. There we go. Oh,
It's a little weird, little background, but boom.
There she is.
These things are new and improved from past few years. They're heavy, they're hefty, they are beautiful. Cannot wait to give these out on stage. And then, yeah, we're going to have a cool photo booth where you can get your face on the High Times magazine cover, which people have loved at some of our past events. And then, yeah, I think Julio mentioned it, but the Mr. Melty Land immersive experience, that'll be fun. Get trippy with it in there. And yeah, just some fun vendors to interact with, hang out with, bring the community together, finally, to just celebrate the cannabis industry as a whole and enjoy in peace.
Yes,
yeah.
Absolutely.
100%. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you guys sharing that with me, and all this information of High Times, the event. I'm excited. Red and Meth are one of my favorite rappers of all time. Growing up listening to him. I didn't even know Paul Wall was going till the other day when I saw his post of him saying he was going. I was like, oh, well, that's cool as shit. I like Paul Wall too. So it's great that these artists are going to be there. I get to see them live. I've never seen any of these guys live before, so it's going to be a 2-for-1 kind of situation for me. So I'm just kind of fanboying in that sense right now. So I appreciate you gentlemen for making this happen for all of us in the state.
Yeah, show you the world, Chad. We can show you the world.
Please do. Well, if you guys don't care, I got one more topic before you guys head out. If you guys want to chat about that one.
Sure.
Yeah, cool. We'll blaze through this one. I really wanted to touch base on it because this one is actually near and dear to my heart because this has been brought up to me a few times. Proper product storage at the retail front. And me and Joey briefly kind of, brushed this before the rest of you gents joined us. But here in New Mexico, we have an issue with people not storing certain things correctly. The hash rosins, other hashes, the BHOs, even the hash holes. They're being stored at room temperature. They could bleed through, et cetera, et cetera. So I wanted to kind of just give some tips to the retailers how they can ensure that the cannabis that they get stays fresh, because after cannabis is harvested, it starts to degrade very quickly. Even after you dry and cure it, it's still degrading as that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
THC turns into CBN. Terpenes leave the cannabis plant at a rapid rate, especially if it's not, sealed correctly, et cetera, et cetera. The list goes on. So, Joey, I know you earlier, you're like, ooh, rubbing your hands. What are some tips off the top of your head you can give some retailers here in New Mexico to ensure their product goes the longest?
So I don't think it's always just one-sided, right? I think there's a lot of issues within transporting your product even.
That's true.
So proper transportation to your retail partners. And if you're a good retail partner, give them the refrigerator. Buy them the display refrigerator. Don't rely on them to produce or to store your product properly. Give them the opportunity to create, or give yourself the opportunity to display it in their retail partner. Say, hey, I want to give you a fridge because I care about my product and how it's displayed and stored in your store. So buy them the $100 refrigerator. You can find them very cheap. Get a display, wrap your refrigerator. You can spend $300 total and you'll have a kick-ass refrigerator that is logoed out, everything. So my thing is, just don't rely on the retail partners. Rely on yourselves. Just like as every grower through the legacy market, you never had to depend on other people. You do it yourself within packaging, transport, everything. So if it's a rosin, make sure it's transported cold. Then make sure it's stored in a cooled area. If it's transported, make sure it's in a locked ice chest. Don't just put it in the car next to your flower. Like, those are different temperature sets. So, I think it's, especially with the New Mexico summer, you got to be careful of all that. So it's more so just not on the retailers as well. But if a retailer actually does care how their product gets to the customer at the end of the day, they should take the extra step in buying those display fridges as well. And it shows the customers caring. I wish I had it, but there's even producers in Michigan, one of our top producers called North Coast. They actually have a cool pack in their concentrate box. So it's just another level of their packaging that keeps their product cooler, and it can transport better. They provide their dispensaries with little tiny cool bags that just regulate the temperature a little bit better as the customer can take their product home. So instead of relying on a dispensary exit bag, because especially with concentrates, if they're more viscous and everything, make sure that you give the dispensary a exit bag for your product that's compliant, and then they can take it home. So it's not just the retailers that you need to be wary of. Like Walmart doesn't care how the product's shipped to you. They just give you the product, the producer should be the one actually caring more so than the retailers.
100%. And I work with the rosin company right now, and when we deliver product, it's in a cooler. It's
Good.
with an ice pack in there. We're ensuring that they're getting that product as fresh as possible. Whatever happens after that is out of our hands, of course. But that's one thing that I wanted to really touch base at. Yes, and you bring up really good points that even during transport, you want to ensure that you have the freshest product once it gets to its end destination. So thank you for that. That's one reason why I wanted to bring it up to you, gents, because I figured with the extensive knowledge and experience that you guys had, you'd have some really great tips for people here in New Mexico, because we're still an emerging market. We're still growing. So I really appreciate that. Kaz, do you happen to have anything?
I think Joey has the best answers for that. That's the dream scenario is yes, it's coming in, for things like rosin, it's coming from the producer cold, the retailer's keeping it cold, it's going to the hands of the judges cold, and the judge actually puts it into a place that's, preserved as well. But not all of that happens. Not all of that is even possible, just as Joey said. So it's, how can vendors who really care about their products provide the equipment or materials for the retailer to store that? And then how does the retailer really accentuate the fact, especially for people who aren't familiar, that, hey, these concentrates, when we do our concentrate kits, it's upwards of 10 concentrates that we go through the time and effort to place them into boxes laid flat and put inside the judge totes laid flat. And all we can do is say, hey, retailer, when you receive this, keep it laid flat. When you hand it to the judge, tell them to keep it laid flat. Will they adhere to that? It is always up to them and up to the judges and the education of the judges or any consumer, not specific to the Cannabis Cups, to know that, hey, I should be keeping this laid flat. I can't just grab my bag and toss it into my back seat and see what happens and then bring it home and leave it on my couch. You got to take advantage, you got to take care of that stuff. And it's all comes down to education and just guidance from the people who really know.
I will agree with that last. I just, Mark touched on it briefly, but, the customer needs to be just as educated, right? If you're spending money on a Ferrari and you're keeping it outside in a hailstorm, then, that's on you. You know what I mean?
100%.
So it's it's we could only do so much as a producer and as a retail establishment. Once that product makes it to your hand, it's up to that consumer to be educated about how to keep their products in the best pristine condition for them to enjoy when they partake, right? I've seen people come in and buy the best hash we have, and they go out and keep it in their hot car all day. And it's like, dude, it's 110 degrees outside and you got hash sitting on your dashboard.
Yeah. And
it's
your
going to be
car,
what
it's
it
even
is.
hotter.
Right. It's going to be what it is, right? So with that being the case, it is, back to the simplest form of education, understanding what you're buying, knowing what you're getting involved with so that you can have the best experience with it as well.
Yeah. 100%, because you're dealing with organic material regardless of what it is. It's an organic material. It's breaking down actively as you hand it to the customer. It's still breaking down. It's still changing and morphing. As many things we can do to slow that process down to the end source where the customer can really consume it and get it at its full potential. We want to try to do that. And that's one thing I wanted to bring it up with you guys here too, is I want my listeners to be educated. I want them to be educated consumers so they can not do these certain things like, even flour, storing your flour at a higher temperature isn't a good idea either. It's in the sunlight, et cetera, et cetera. So even at the retailers,
customers, they need to understand that, terpenes will get volatile at about 74 degrees, 75 degrees and higher. Your terpenes start to get volatile, which means they're burning off, melting away. People think, oh, this smells so good. Well, that's actually your terpenes burning off if you don't have it in the right environment. I'm sure it does smell good, but you're not enjoying the inhalation of that terpene by just smelling it in the air. We don't buy this stuff to use it as air freshener. We buy this stuff to use it as medicine. And that said, make sure you're storing it correctly and partaking with it correctly. That way you can have the best experience with the cannabis products that you spend your hard-earned money on.
Yeah, 100%. Because you don't want to buy top shelf cannabis at a top shelf price, take it home, leave the jar open, leave it in a warm room. They recommend anywhere from 70 to 60 degrees for storing, flower cannabis,
Right.
especially here in New Mexico, we have packaged and we have deli style as well. So the places that do that, you might want to think about increasing your humidity inside of the whole building, because you are losing, every time you open that jar, you're losing something.
Yep.
Especially if it's, sitting there at room temperature, just hanging out. So yeah, you bring up some really good points, really, on that as well. There's so many things that go into it, and I wish we could talk about this all day.
Yeah,
But
right.
I feel like we've given everybody some really good starting points on, how to keep their cannabis stored, why to keep your cannabis stored in the first place. 'Cause some people don't even know. They just like, oh, it's weed. You just you put it there,
Yeah.
and I'm like, oh, now you got oregano, or they're sitting there making hash in the jar, shaking it, trying to get it to smell better. I'm like, oh my god. So I see that still at the dispensaries, and God, that is one of the biggest thing that irks me is when I
That's
see
why I
someone
don't like
shaking a
deli
jar.
style. You're not going
I
to be buying deli style anymore.
Yeah, 100%, dude. I'm not a big fan of deli style myself for that reason. The fact that you're losing out on terpenes, and people tend to shake the jar.
Or the
they're
little
sitting there
nose
making
hairs that drop in there as they're sniffing the jar,
Oh,
God,
delicious.
yeah, God, that's the worst. So, yeah, but anyway, gentlemen, thank you so much again for joining me today. The Kaz and Joey, they have to get off to a meeting, or else we'd get on to the Sunland Park town hall. I'm conducting some town halls, and actually I want to mention that before we get off. The last event I want to mention, of course, the High Times Cannabis Cup. But the day before, we're going to be having a industry sesh town hall meeting at Galileo Dispensary in Albuquerque. This is the chance for all of you retail establishments, cannabis businesses, all of the ancillary businesses to come tell us and the legislators what's working, what's not working. So that way, when we start and write these bills, it's made for the industry, by the industry, instead of the legislators trying to figure out. We've already done this in Cruces and Sunland. We've got a lot of good data. Now we're going up to Albuquerque, our biggest market in the state, that's within the state. And we're going to try to figure out what's going on, because you guys have a lot of dispensaries, and I'm curious to hear what all of you have to say up there and ways that we can suggest to, help this work better. So anyway, I wanted to mention that. Gents, thank you again for joining me. If you guys would like to come to the town hall, let me know. I can get you the information. The more, the better.
Yeah, man.
And I'm
real
sure,
quick,
Julio, you'd have some good insights too, because you brought up some good points today as well. I'd love to hear what
real
you
quick, if I could, I'd like to, just recap again. Concert event. We got the Mr. Melty Land, like Mark spoke about. We have Q-Bone, Snoop Dogg's personal chef, coming out to give some of his best munchie recipes and kind of do a little exhibition over there. So a lot of cool stuff. And just want to give a big shout out to all of our sponsors, right? So Elevated, Enchanted Botanicals, Stash Box, Assurance Laboratories, Headspace, Dime, Fresh Picks. There's a ton of them, right? Ghost Extracts, Pure Life, Sublime, The Clear, Dreams. God, there's so many, but thank you to everybody who's come out and shown us love and helped out with High Times and Fusion Promotions and the hustle, make this thing, a reality for New Mexico. So thank you, and lots of love out to all of our supporters and sponsors. And thanks for having us on, man. We appreciate it.
Yeah, for real. And we hope everybody comes out. Go to cannabiscup.com, get the details, get your tickets. We got it this Saturday, December 9th, Rio Rancho Event Center. Doors at 3 p.m. Don't be late. You're going to want to be there from start to finish to see all the award shows, see who's got the best weed in New Mexico, watch all the performing artists, get your name or your face on the High Times magazine cover with our High Times photo booth, and just more to come. Come see me and Joey on stage and yell at us and throw tomatoes at us.
Yes.
Or roses. Either one.
Yes.
Either one. But we'll be there, and we hope to see all of you there as well.
It's Christmas. I hope it's tamales. At least you can eat them.
Hey, that's very New Mexican. Yes.
But yes, thank you so much for having us, Chad. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Chad.
Thank you, Kaz and Joey, and and Julio, all for joining me. It was a great conversation, and I really appreciate you guys. And I guess I'll see y'all this weekend.
Yeah, man. Look forward to it.
We'll see you later, Chad.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Later, Chad.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good holiday, and I'll see y'all next season for season 2. Shoots.
All right.